For most people, September 13, 1978, was an ordinary Wednesday. But that day was momentous for Cheryl Bradshaw, the bachelorette on the TV matchmaking show The Dating Game. From a lineup of eligible bachelors, she chose handsome bachelor number 1, Rodney Alcala, who would turn out to be an active serial killer. But at that very moment, he was keeping a deadly secret. After the show ended, she conversed with Rodney backstage. He ended up offering her a date she'd never forget. If not for a healthy jolt of women's intuition, Bradshaw would almost certainly be remembered today as one of Alcala's victims. But Bradshaw got the feeling that her handsome potential suitor was a little off. Had the popular dating show performed background checks on their bachelors, they would have discovered he had already spent 3 years in prison for raping and beating an 8-year-old girl. He'd done the same to a 13-year-old too, which landed him on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. But sometimes, a background check can't even uncover the whole story. In Rodney Alcala's case, the whole story consisted of at least 4 prior murders that he hadn't been definitively linked to yet. As you can probably imagine, Cheryl Bradshaw's rejection likely only fueled Alcala's fire. In total, before and after his television appearance, the sadistic dating game killer claimed that he killed between 50 and 100 people. Rodney Alcala was born in San Antonio, Texas, in 1943. His father moved the family to Mexico when he was 8 years old, only to abandon them 3 years later. His mother then moved Rodney and his sister to suburban Los Angeles. At age 17, Alcala entered the army as a clerk. But after a nervous breakdown, he was medically discharged due to mental health issues. Then, the intelligent young man with an IQ of 135 attended UCLA. But he wouldn't stay on the straight and narrow for long. Like many serial killers, Rodney Alcala had a signature style. His signatures were beating, biting, raping, and often choking victims until the point of unconsciousness. Then, once they came to, he'd start the process over again. On his first known attempt at killing, he was successful at only 2 of these things. The victim was Taylor Shapiro, an 8-year-old girl he lured into his Hollywood apartment in 1968. Shapiro barely survived her rape and beating. Her life was saved by a passerby who'd reported a tip to police on a possible abduction. Rodney fled his apartment when the police arrived, and remained a fugitive for years afterward. He moved to New York and used the alias John Berger to enroll in film school at New York University. After being recognized thanks to an FBI poster, Rodney was finally identified as the perpetrator in the rape and attempted murder of Taylor Shapiro. He was arrested in 1971, but only sent to prison on charges of assault because Taylor Shapiro's family kept her from testifying, making a rape conviction unattainable. After spending 3 years behind bars, he soon spent another 2 years in prison for assaulting a 13-year-old girl. Soon after getting out of prison, Rodney traveled to New York to visit relatives. Investigators now believe that he killed a college student named Elaine Hover, the daughter of a famous Hollywood nightclub owner and goddaughter of Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin within 7 days of his arrival there. Rodney searched for a job and landed one as a typesetter at the Los Angeles Times in 1978. This time, going under his real name, which was now attached to a substantial criminal record. A typist by day, by night, he lured in young girls to be part of his professional photography portfolio. Some of them never to be heard from again. 1 year after the dating game appearance, 17-year-old Leanne Leadham was lucky enough to walk away unscathed from a photo shoot with Rodney Alcala. He showed her his portfolio, which included spread after spread of naked teenage boys in addition to shots of women. Police have since released parts of Alcala's portfolio to the public to help identify potential victims. The case that would finally break Rodney Alcala's killing spree was that of 12-year-old Robin Samso. She disappeared from Huntington Beach, California, on her way to ballet class on June 20, 1979. Her friend said that a stranger approached them on the beach and asked if they'd want to do a photo shoot. They declined, and then Robin left, borrowing a friend's bike to get to ballet class. At some point between the beach and class, she disappeared. Nearly 12 days later, a park ranger found her in a forested area near the Pasadena foothills of the Sierra Madre. Upon questioning Robin's friends, a police sketch artist drew up a composite, and Rodney Alcala's former parole officer recognized his face. Between the sketch, Rodney's criminal past, and the discovery of Robin's earrings in his Seattle storage locker, police felt confident that they had their man. But beginning with the trial in 1980, Robin's family would have to follow a rather long and winding road to justice. Initially, the jury found Alcala guilty of first-degree murder, and he received the death penalty. However, the California Supreme Court overturned this verdict because he thought the jury was prejudiced by learning of Alcala's past sex crimes. It took 6 years to put him back on trial. At the second trial in 1986, another jury sentenced him to death. But this one didn't stick either. A Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals panel overturned it in 2001. Surprisingly, a third trial wasn't held until 2010, 31 years after the murder. Alcala announced to much surprise that he would be his own lawyer in his third trial. Even though now, 31 years after Samso's murder, investigators also had concrete evidence against him on 4 different murders from decades past, thanks to the prison's DNA swabs. The prosecution was able to combine these new murder charges along with Robin Samso in the 2010 trial. The only other witness for the defense, psychologist Richard Rappaport, explained that Alcala's memory lapse could be equated to his borderline personality disorder. Rodney was successful in 2 lawsuits against the California penal system. One for a slip and fall accident and another for the prison's refusal to provide him with a low-fat menu. But, not surprisingly, the jury found Alcala guilty of the 4 DNA-backed charges and found him guilty of killing Robin. The court handed Alcala the death penalty again for the 3rd time. Since that trial, investigators have continued to link the dating game killer to many other cold case murders, including 2 to which he pled guilty in New York in 2013. Although, we may never know the full extent of his crimes. While still sitting on death row in California, Rodney Alcala died of natural causes at age 77 on July 24, 2021. The planet is a better place without him, that's for sure.
Please click the subscribe button so you can keep up to date with my channel. Thanks for watching and take care.